guys, I'm back with another video. This one is called Gas Station and Stalker. This one should be good. It's by IMR Scary Tales, and it's two horror stories. So I'm assuming one's a gas station one and one's a stalker one, so this ought to be good. I just love horror stories. Like, it's a good life lesson, it's good, it tells you what not to do, even though you kind of should already know if it's obvious, but let's go. Gas station first.
In the summer of 2017, at around 8:30 p.m., I suddenly remembered that I needed to put some gas in my car. Finishing the last paragraph of my essay, I called my parents to let them know that I would be gone for a few minutes, but that I was coming straight back. The gas station was about 10 minutes from my house, so I would have been back in about 20 minutes or so. I grabbed my keys and left without another word. After 10 minutes of driving, I arrived at the gas station and pulled up to the nearest pump. As I started pumping gas into my car, an old beat-up pickup truck appeared in the corner of my eye. I turned my head to look and noticed two dark figures just sitting there. I couldn't make out any distinguishing features, but they seemed to be talking while checking out the place. I brushed it off and finished filling my tank.
Hurry.
Before I got back into my car, I decided to run into the building to grab some snacks for my boyfriend.
Bad idea.
I then walked inside and quickly picked out some items. Just as I was done making my purchase, two men wearing jeans with black hoodies burst into the store, guns drawn. Both of them appeared to be in their mid-20s and fairly built. "Everybody get on the ground!" the first man shouted. The cashier and everyone else in the store immediately obeyed his orders. There was a few panicked whispers until one of the men shouted at them to shut up. I felt my heart pick up its pace, and my blood ran cold.
All you have to do is leave.
These men were about to rob this place, and possibly shoot up the customers or the cashier. I prayed silently to myself that no one would be killed or seriously injured. One of the men grabbed my hair. "You, stand," he commanded. Fearing for my life, I did as he ordered. Almost immediately, I felt an arm snake around my wrist and take hold. I would have elbowed him, stomped his foot, or attempted to punch his face, but I was so paralyzed in fear to think or do anything. The worst part, I felt a gun aiming at the back of my head. I tried squirming away from the man's grip, but he just held me tighter and hissed at me. "Stay still, sweetheart, and no one gets hurt." The other man shouted at the cashier. "Hand over the cash, or you're gonna be scraping this bitch's brains off the wall."
Oh my god.
I had no connection with the cashier in any way, except for just being a customer at the store. But I could tell from the look in his eyes that he wanted to protect me in any way he could. He was an older guy, possibly in his 60s, with glasses on his face. I knew that he had no choice but to comply with their demands. He hastily unlocked the register. As he was handing over the cash, I felt the barrel of the gun press against the side of my head, and I nearly started to freak out. I restrained myself and just started to tear up a little. My throat burned from holding it back, all for the sake of keeping myself alive for as long as possible. Once every last dollar bill was in the man's hands, sirens blared from outside.
Oh shit, who called the cops?
The man then stuffed the money into a backpack, then punched out the cashier.
Oh my god.
I was then thrown to the side, my stomach and arm hitting the edge of the counter before I fell onto the floor. As soon as the two men ran outside, they were surrounded by police.
Yes.
Within seconds, they were tackled to the ground and handcuffed.
Fucking love that.
I was still catching my breath, but I was more concerned about the cashier. I pulled myself up and peeked over the counter. For the most part, he seemed okay.
Okay, thank God.
Although I could see his right eye was turning black. His glasses lay broken on the floor. "Are you all right, sir?" I weakly asked him, my stomach still hurting. "I'm a little blind at the moment, but I'll be okay," he responded. "Is everyone all right?" a familiar voice asked. One of the cops, who was also very good friends with my father, had entered the store. "Just us two might need some attention," I said. The officer turned towards us. He immediately recognized me and asked if I was okay. The cashier and I told him everything, as other cops eventually came in and questioned the other customers. It turns out that a customer had sneaked into the bathroom and called 911 without the robbers noticing.
Yes.
Once the questioning had finished, I just couldn't hold it in anymore. I burst into tears, not because I was in pain, but because I had just endured the scariest moment of my life. I just wanted to get home and put an ice pack on my stomach. The cashier was rushed out of the store on a stretcher. Do you need any medical attention? The officer asked. I shook my head and cried, I just want to go home. As I walked out of the store, I noticed a few cops investigating the truck I had seen earlier. And then it clicked in my head. That vehicle belonged to the two men.
Well, no
They had been
shit.
scoping out the place, waiting for the right time to strike.
No fucking shit.
And I was pretty sure that I was the first person they saw to use as bait. A police car followed me home that night. I then made a promise to myself that I would never go certain places at night ever again.
That's traumatizing as hell, oh my god. Restaurant horror
This
story?
story isn't about me, but a coworker I work with. I work at a TGI Fridays as a waiter. There's this one girl I work with. We'll call her Beth. Beth was a nice girl. If I had to rate her, which I usually don't because every guy has a different taste and beauty is in the eye of the beholder. On a scale of 10, she was a good 7 or 8. So it was pretty obvious she was going to get a lot of attention from our customers. However, when I would greet our customers at the door and show them to our table, there was this one guy who would always ask for Beth. At first, I was okay with it because the customer is always right. And also because there were customers who would prefer me over other waiters as well. So I went to get Beth, and she waited him. This was normal. For the first few days, he would come back around the same time for lunch, and I found this normal too, because many people have their favorite places where they eat lunch.
That's true.
After a while, the other waiters and waitresses and I began teasing her about her new boyfriend. Beth would wait on him like she always did, but now he would come in more than once a day. Beth began to feel uncomfortable with it. She would tell me how he would try to make small talk and flirt with her, and even gave her his phone number. I laughed because it was funny as hell. The whole conversation went over my head, and I told her to just ignore it and take advantage of it because he was giving her pretty hefty tips every time. That was bad advice on my part, because she took it, and it only got worse. After a couple of months, I got a new work schedule because I had more free time and was able to work more. I began to work from 6 to closing time, which was around 2 a.m.
Ew.
It was probably the best work schedule I ever had, because most of the people I talked to at work worked those same hours, including Beth, who also worked from 6 to close. Also because usually after 12 a.m., no one showed up, and the manager would either close early or we would just hang out and eat free food until closing time. So closing was fun. But one of our co-workers noticed that there was always a dude waiting outside near a 7-Eleven every day, and sometimes he would be in this blue Civic. Beth, a couple of waiters, and I knew who he was right away, and we filled each other in on who he was. Needless to say, Beth was really scared at this point.
I'll be too, he's waiting for
Being
you.
friends, we decided to help out in any way possible. The days where she didn't have a car, I or someone else would offer to drive her home.
And either way, the guy can follow you.
One of us would walk her to her car, and man, that was the right thing to do. One day when I was walking to my car, this guy came up to me. He introduced himself and asked me a couple of questions. One was if there was a job available.
No.
I told him how to apply, and that I would tell him if there was a spot open. The other question, however, set off a red flag in my head. He asked me if Beth had a boyfriend, and began talking about her and how gorgeous she was, and how he wanted to get to know her, etc. I laughed and told him, a girl like her probably has a lot of suitors waiting, and she already has one. Not the best response. I texted her about my encounter, and that only contributed to her fear. It got worse. One day she forgot to ask somebody to walk with her to her car, and she went alone. But I ended up following behind, just in case something happened.
Good.
I followed about 10 steps behind. I watched her get into her car. As I got into my car, I noticed out of the corner of my eye the blue Civic. She
Follow
pulled
it.
out of the parking lot and everything seemed normal. But he pulled out and started following her.
Follow him.
And so did I. I followed far behind so that he wouldn't notice me.
Yes.
The stalker followed her all the way to her house. I texted her to tell her to take the extra long way home because she was being followed, and so that I could end up at her house first. She did, and when she pulled up and saw the blue Civic passed by, she was in tears. She hugged me and thanked me for saving her life. I went back to my car and stayed for 30 minutes, just in case, but the guy never came back. My friend Beth still works at TGI Fridays, but not at 6 to close anymore, and the creepy guy stopped showing up after a while too, and I can only hope it stays that way.
Shit, eh? Those are really good stories. I noticed IMR and like all these good channels have really good stories. Wow. Okay, so the first one is just traumatizing how you just go to a gas station to get gas. She obviously made a wrong decision by going to get something, but obviously you don't expect for that to happen, of course, so I guess I can't really blame her saying, well, like, why'd you do that? You know, because of course you don't expect that. But again, you gotta expect the unexpected. Like, you really have to expect the unexpected, to be frankly honest with you. Like, you have to. Because, like, you don't really expect anything that ends up happening, so it's like, just be careful and be mindful, because, like, you never know what's gonna happen, so. Be careful and be safe, that's all I can really say. I was really glad that everyone was okay. I'm glad they were okay. Like, especially like Hashir, I'm really glad they got caught too, because that's like the best part. I love seeing I love seeing criminals get caught. It's so entertaining. It's so entertaining to me. It's like, yes, get that bitch. I love it so much. I got really into that for some reason. So the stalker one is really scary too, because like obviously anybody can be stalked. A guy can be stalked, a girl can be stalked. Of course, unfortunately for girls, it's mostly girls, because guys are freaking perverts. That's why you gotta be mindful and careful. Like, you really gotta be like, you know, like keeping your attention up, and, you know, like ensuring that things are okay, or, you know, and, like, you know what I mean, just kind of ensuring that things seem okay, or, you know, just as long as you're mindful of what's going on, and like you're mindful of your surroundings and stuff, and like you realize what's happening, you know. That was definitely really good. Just really like scary to even hear and think about. So that's really traumatizing for sure. But I'm glad that everyone's okay, and I'm really glad that that's all good and stuff like that. So that's gonna be that. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you. And that's it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.